According to reports, King Charles has signed a confidential document that could drastically alter Camilla's life after his death. To be clear from the outset, this is not your usual tabloid rumour spreading because someone saw a blurry picture. What sources describe as a particular legal document, a confidential document that was reportedly examined by legal counsel and purports to include specific terms regarding Camilla's title, her finances, her security arrangements, and her family's access to the monarchy after Charles leaves. That is a very specific set of claims, and what makes this story worthwhile to sit with are the specifics of each one. You need to know where Charles is at the moment in order to comprehend why any of this matters. His age is 76. In February 2024, he received a cancer diagnosis. The type was never made public by the palace, but treatment began right away and has continued ever since. It's amazing that he has continued to attend every official audience, public event, and state visit during the course of his treatment. Sources familiar with Charles's personal circumstances describe a man who has been quietly grappling with a timeline that no longer feels remote or abstract, although the palace communications have kept things ambiguous. He appears to have been making decisions based on his awareness of what lies ahead. Charles is actively shifting power in favour of William and Kate, as evidenced by a verified public trail. He gave them the power to issue royal warrants and publicly support brands on behalf of the Crown in 225. It's not a small administrative change. In the past, monarchs have taken great care to protect that privilege. Maureen Callaghan, a royal analyst, told the Daily Mail that Charles had essentially ceded the throne and would rather stay out of issues that could jeopardise the future of the monarchy. That's not the opinion of just one commentator. It is indicative of a larger trend that has been clearly developing over the past few years. In this case, the context is a king who is aware of his time constraints, who has been purposefully transferring power to his son, and who reportedly worked in private with a small group of legal advisors on a very specific project for several months in early to late 2025. According to sources, Charles personally started the process at the beginning of 2025 with a specific goal in mind. According to sources, the document that purportedly emerged from that process significantly altered Camilla's future prospects. Apparently, she was unaware of its existence until someone else informed her. That's the part of the narrative that keeps drawing me in. Charles battled the entire world for decades to place Camilla on the throne next to him. He was subjected to severe and ongoing criticism for that relationship. He was the longest-waiting heir in British history to ascend to the throne. When he was eventually crowned, one of the first things that people recalled was how much Camilla had publicly cost him. You have to ask yourself, why would a man who allegedly went through all of that sign a private document full of conditions about his wife's future without even telling her first? According to sources, Charles has distinguished between his personal feelings for Camilla and what he thinks the organisation he is in charge of truly needs. It is said that those two items ultimately pointed in different directions. The details are what make this story truly fascinating, so let's examine what the document is said to contain. The title question, the financial arrangements, the security and household provisions, and one other element that apparently affected Camilla more than any of the others are the three primary dimensions described by the sources. In terms of titles, it is customary for the Queen Consort to become Queen Dowager upon the death of a British monarch.
There is actual institutional weight to that designation.
It conveys that the monarchy fully recognises and respects the consort's role. Princess de Jager is a lesser title. The distinction is crucial in a system where titles are never merely symbolic. According to sources, the purported document discusses Camilla's post-reign title in a way that she would not have expected, given her knowledge of what automatically applies to a queen consort following her husband's passing. Sources take care to state that they are unsure of the precise designation. They explain how the document addresses it in a way that shows thoughtful decision-making, as opposed to merely following standard procedure. In terms of money, it is fairly clear from public sources that Camilla most likely inherited from Charles. The estimated value of Clarence House is $72 million. Highgrove at about $39 million. Financial support systems are in place. According to sources, the purported document adds specific conditions that link Camilla's behaviour after Charles leaves, but it doesn't contest that basic outline. The Sarah Ferguson friendship is the condition that sources describe in the most detail. The US Department of Justice has released documents pertaining to Epstein that include Sarah Ferguson's name. Although the association is documented, no criminal offence has been proven against her. Then, in February 2026, Prince Andrew was taken into custody on charges related to the Epstein network, which made any connection to that circumstance suddenly much more real as an institutional issue. According to sources, Camilla had already been under pressure from William to publicly distance herself from Sarah. Camilla declined. According to sources, the purported document includes a specific clause that links specific financial arrangements to Camilla's public distance, turning what had previously been a private dispute over loyalty into something with recorded financial repercussions. It's important that my description of it has changed from family tension to encoded condition. It shifts William's preference from being something Camilla can challenge through Charles to something that Charles purportedly decided to formalise. That significantly alters the dynamic. The home, supplies and security complete the picture. According to sources, the document outlines a post-reign setup for Camilla that is significantly more constrained than her current arrangements as active queen consort, including fewer security guards, fewer household employees, and fewer institutional resources. The framing is punitive, according to sources. It is portrayed as being more suitable for a wealthy private citizen than for a senior royal who is employed. However, sources indicate that Camilla's everyday life is far more restricted than she had imagined. This is the point at which the story transcends institutional paperwork and palace logistics, because sources discuss an additional component of the purported document that goes beyond the financial circumstances, the security arrangements, and the title question. And when Camilla learned about it, sources claim that this was the part that had the biggest impact on her. Diana is involved. And before I delve into what the sources say, I would like to point out that this aspect of the narrative needs to be handled carefully, because it sits at the nexus of deeply personal history and institutional decisions in a way that makes it genuinely difficult to dissect. According to sources, the purported document includes clauses that formally safeguard Diana's legacy in the institutional memory of the monarchy. Particular arrangements regarding Diana's place in the official history of Charles's reign, how her importance is recognised separately, that is, apart from how history ultimately perceives Camilla's role in that same narrative. According to reports, Charles signed that while Camilla was still living, Sources claim that this particular aspect is what struck Camilla differently from everything else in the document, even though she still has the title of Queen Consort and sits next to him at every state function, symbolizing the position he fought for decades to grant her. Not because it costs her money or takes away something she already has, but rather because it reveals in private how Charles has been considering his own decisions and past. You must examine what William has actually been doing institutionally over the past few years in order to comprehend why he is purportedly as deeply involved in all of this as sources claim. Because once you see the pattern, it is not subtle. One of William's first actions after taking over the Duchy of Cornwall in September 2022 was to fire Camilla's sister, Annabel Elliot. Emmy Griffiths, a royal analyst, publicly recorded that removal and observed the profound effects it had on royal circles. William replaced her with members of his own family, including his children's godparents, who were assigned to estate management positions. That ruling created a model that has been consistently used ever since. William removed Camilla-affiliated individuals from areas under his control and replaced them with his own dependable individuals. The Balmoral scenario is another. It is said that Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, gained unauthorized access to Balmoral. The legal response from Princess Anne was prompt. Access to the estate was permanently restricted after William fully and unhesitatingly sided with Anne. According to sources, the purported document directly addresses the Parker Bowles family's connection to royal properties, and William's reaction to the Balmoral situation was not merely a reaction to a particular incident, but rather the application of that documented principle. The altercation at Sandringham intensified the situation. It is said that Tom Parker Bowles was discovered on the property once more. According to sources, William's response was raw and more instantaneous, much more intense than his typical methodical management style. Charles reportedly expressed discomfort during the conversation that followed, but William's position remained completely unchanged. According to sources, the intensity was a reflection of the particular annoyance of someone supposedly putting in place a system that was specifically created to avoid these circumstances, and seeing it compromised by Charles's own personal invitations. The approach William seems to be taking is what really intrigues me about all of this. Each and every enforcement action he allegedly takes has a valid institutional basis that is entirely separate from any purported document. The decisions made by the Duchy are typical of new ownership management. Access to the property is restricted in response to certain alleged incidents. The legitimate operational authority of his household is reflected in the event management. Each one is defensible on its own, but taken as a whole, they result in something thorough, coherent, and already highly developed. That's not a coincidence. That person carefully considers how to navigate institutional spaces without going too far. According to sources, William also enforces the purported framework on other fronts. According to reports, Camilla's inner circle was excluded from a major royal event involving Anne, with William's household and Anne's working together to completely avoid Camilla's network. Regarding the jewellery issue, it appears that Camilla's access to some important pieces is still restricted, while Elizabeth's purported designations for Catherine are respected and safeguarded. The alleged framework's symbolic aspects are being enforced through the distribution of collections in a language that is easily understood by all those involved in the palace. The crucial question that lies beneath all of this is why Charles allegedly agreed to it. Three levels to that answer are described by sources, and they all operate concurrently. Institutional is the first. Charles has devoted his entire life to comprehending what the monarchy demands of its subjects, what it needs to endure regardless of personal preferences or interpersonal connections. Over the course of 70 years, he saw his mother put that understanding into practice. Elizabeth prioritized the institution in ways that repeatedly cost her personally. How she handled the Diana situation, how she handled the legacy of the abdication crisis, and how she responded to Harry and Meghan's departure. Those were all uncomfortable choices. They were all examples of an institutional logic that transcended individual preferences. According to sources, Charles fully internalized that reasoning, and the purported document shows how it was applied to his most intimate choice during his rule. William is directly at the second level. According to sources, one of the most important private conversations between a British monarch and his heir in contemporary royal history took place between Charles and William in the spring of 2025. Not heated, it is calm and measured, according to sources. The type of conversation that occurs when two people have carefully considered what they want to say. William arrived with a position that was well stated. The post-reign arrangements had to take into account the institutional reality of the monarchy that William would inherit, not the preferences of individuals whose status depended on Charles's continued protection. According to sources, Charles listened with the attentiveness of a man who recognizes that the person speaking to him is correct, and William was stating rather than asking. According to Diana, the third level is the most important and uncomfortable to sit with. Charles was present. He is aware of the cost to his first wife of his relationship with Camilla. The guilt has never completely gone away. William carries that knowledge differently, as grief rather than guilt, a wound that influences every institutional decision he makes about what the monarchy he leads should look like, regardless of the public declarations about moving forward and the institutional acceptance of Camilla as Queen Consort. According to sources, this aspect was also discussed in the spring of 2025. Though not overtly expressed in therapeutic terms, it was evident in both men's institutional language, in what William stated about the needs of the monarchy, and in what Charles heard beneath those arguments. Additionally, sources claim that Charles added the Diana legacy provisions to the purported document on his own initiative, going beyond anything William specifically asked for. His personal admission of the consequences of his decisions was encoded into something enduring. According to sources, Camilla's perception of the document was most drastically altered by that purported addition when she learned it existed. Not the title question, not the financial circumstances. The Diana dimension was the knowledge that while Camilla was still alive and seated next to him as his queen, her husband had examined his institutional legacy and determined that Diana's position within it merited formal protection. On a Wednesday, Camilla learned that something important had been decided, not from Charles, not through a conversation her husband started or a warning he gave her. She learned about the alleged document through a legal advisor in her own home, whose position allowed them access to certain palace legal procedures. The advisor had to make a very tough personal and professional decision about what to do with the information after learning about it through channels that were never meant to reach Camilla. According to sources, the advisor carefully presented it to Camilla while exercising the proper caution regarding the boundaries of their knowledge and their level of certainty regarding the specific contents of the document. But when you're talking about your employer's husband allegedly finalizing a private legal document with terms regarding your employer's future without ever consulting her, the word carefully is relative. There's no easy way to get that information. According to sources, Camilla's response in the hours that followed that conversation was qualitatively different from anything she produced during the months that tensions with William escalated. The prior responses to the duchy rulings, the limitations on estate access, and particular enforcement actions had been harsh, irate, and reactive. According to sources, the response this time was more fundamental. The specific type of destruction that results from finding a crack in the ground you've been standing on that you were unaware existed, rather than from an outside attack. She didn't approach Charles right away. According to sources, she first took some time to sit with the information, consider the implications of what she had been told, and decide how to approach her husband about decisions he had made without her knowledge over the course of months of private consultations. Charles didn't dispute it when she finally confronted him. The legal work was acknowledged. He accepted the post-reign agreements. During that conversation, he didn't go over the specific terms with her, but he also didn't act as though the document didn't exist or that the description she had been given was false. Then he told her something that sources said was both true and the most difficult thing she had heard from him in a long time. He claimed to have signed everything out of love for her and the organisation they both work for. Camilla's reaction to that framing, according to sources, was prompt and straightforward. She allegedly told Charles that she would have been curious to see what his lack of interest would have looked like if the document showed his love for her. The ensuing silence, according to sources, lasted for a long time. They both sat with what had been said and its meaning, neither of them breaking it. I keep returning to that conversation because it reveals something genuine about the current state of this marriage. This couple overcame decades of public animosity, a media landscape that portrayed Camilla as a villain for years, the burden of Diana's passing and everything that followed, the public accusations made by Harry and Meghan, and Charles's cancer diagnosis. Together, they made it through all of that. The judgment of the outside world, or the agenda of another person, is no longer the obstacle between them. Charles made these decisions on his own, in private, without informing her. Sources indicate that neither of them missed that distinction during that quiet time. Now, take a moment to step back from the personal narrative, because, at its broadest, this is more than just one document or one marriage. It concerns what this purported document stands for in the context of everything that has been developing over the past few years in relation to the British monarchy. Charles cherished Diana. That is not a straightforward statement, and I will not approach it as such. That relationship is consistently described by sources as being genuinely complex. A man in a marriage that was essentially incompatible in ways that extended beyond the affair, torn between duty and personal desire. But in some way, the love was genuine. It was so real that he felt the internal cost of her suffering. It's true enough that the private accounting of his role in her predicament has never been entirely settled. Whatever the nature of that love, it was insufficient to shield Diana from the institutional machinery that failed her, from the withdrawal of support, from the isolation, and from the icy handling of her obvious distress within an institution that ought to have shielded her. Charles still has feelings for Camilla 30 years later. Decades of extraordinary perseverance in the face of persistent public opposition attest to this love. It's undeniable. But sources claim the purported document shows that even this love has been evaluated against institutional accountability and determined to be insufficient in certain areas to ensure Camilla's desired future. The comparison to Diana is uncomfortable. Charles may feel it, according to sources. At the heart of that unease are the Diana provisions purportedly encoded in the document. While Camilla has the title Diana was never able to hold, he formally acknowledged in writing that Diana's legacy deserves institutional protection. Through all of the decisions that sources have detailed throughout this story, including the Duchess's reorganisation of the estate, access modifications, staffing choices, the symbolic repositioning of jewellery and patronages, and occasion management, William is actively constructing the next era of the monarchy. All of this points to a monarchy based on William and Catherine, the direct line of succession, and the ideals Diana spent years trying to instill within the organisation and paid a heavy price for. With each month that goes by, William's institutional identity as his mother's son becomes more apparent. According to sources, the purported document is Charles's official endorsement of that vision, his institutional signature on the era that follows. When the time comes, Camilla will be the title holder. Highgrove and Clarence House will pass to her. Subject to the terms stated in the purported document, she will receive financial assistance. Her position in royal history is genuine, recorded, and unchangeable. However, her legacy will not be positioned as the main narrative from this era of royal history. Nor will the monarchy that succeeds Charles be built around her story, or carry her family's access structures into William's reign. It will be constructed around Diana's sons and grandchildren, around the monarchy that freely admits the costs of the institution to Diana, and strives to be something different in the future. After allegedly reviewing everything, Charles signed his name. Despite his love for Camilla, he signed it. And if sources accurately depict that combination, it reveals something particular and truthful about the kind of person King Charles decided to be when the institutional and the personal finally pulled in different directions, and he had to choose one. Whether that makes him a good king who loved his wife, or a man who repeated the same pattern twice under the guise of institutional responsibility, is the question worth considering. And I'm not just bringing it up for conversation, because there are two possible interpretations of this tale, and the one you choose will likely reveal your beliefs about the true purpose of the monarchy.